Hey, everybody, we're here with another episode of the Wisconsin Investor Podcast, and I have another amazing guest that we're going to be talking with here shortly. Before I get into that, though, as I do in the last few episodes, I'm going to plug Wisconsin Discount Properties for sponsoring today's episode. And we're going to talk about a little deal that we had in the great town of Oshkosh, Wisconsin. One of our buyers picked it up, and he had sent me a little text breakdown of how the deal went for them. So I wanted to share this with you guys today. And if I shared this in another past episode, my bad. I forget what I do on these sometimes. So bear with me. But this was one I got a little text from him recently, maybe a week or two ago from the time we're recording this. On the surface, it didn't look like a slam dunk deal. It looked like a nice little base hit. And turned out they bought it. The numbers here, they closed in 105 days from the day they bought it from us to the day they flipped it. They made 24,000 bucks after all realtor fees, closing costs, rehab, everything like that. I asked him roughly how many hours did he and his partner have into the deal from the time they underwrote this deal to the time that they ended up selling it. And they outsource, they contract everything out. They have about 7 hours into it. So they made about 3,500 bucks per hour on this deal. So even though, some folks I hear out there, a lot of times they want to make 40, 50,000 bucks a pop. Great, awesome aspirations. 3,500 bucks an hour isn't too bad. It's better than a stick in the eye, as we say. So those are the type of deals that we deliver to your inbox every single Monday, 6 a.m. If you want to get on the buyers, let's go to wisconsindiscountproperties.com, put your info in, and you'll start getting the deal sent to you every single week. With that, we have one of our longtime buyers with us, Mr. Andy Boehm. Andy, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good, Corey. How about you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to get you on here. We've talked many, many times over the years. I don't know that we've ever face to face like had a conversation. So
I know this is kind of semi face to face, although
yeah,
we're still talking through computer screens or whatever.
yeah, a little COVID, like bringing us back to COVID days, maybe a little bit, but that's okay. Right?
Yeah,
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 yeah. Well, I'm excited to
works for
have you
me.
out, man. You've been in the real estate industry in Northeast Wisconsin for a while now. Tell us a little bit about, give the audience your background and how you got started. When did you get started, and just how did you get into this crazy real estate investing world?
Sure, sure. Well, I got started in the real estate business probably I would say 15, 16, 17 years ago, something like that.
Wow.
I started out
Okay.
in real estate as a real estate agent and
Okay.
really had no aspirations or whatever at that point in time to buy property or be a real estate investor. That
Okay.
just wasn't on my radar at all. It was more trying to find deals and hustle down, customers to work with
Sure.
listings and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
um but when I had started in real estate, like that was the time when foreclosures were super
Oh,
heavy and
sure.
there's a lot of there's a distressed market, and so
Yeah.
investor buyers, like that was a very big piece of the business. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
that was a huge part of the overall market in those times where foreclosures, and we listed a lot of those foreclosure properties and sold a lot of them. So
Okay.
that's how I got into real estate investing or whatever.
Okay.
When I started to realize, like, okay, like these dudes that are buying the houses are making a lot more money than I am selling them. So it's
Yeah.
like
Start
that's when
putting
I
the pieces
started to.
together a little bit. Like, maybe they're doing something I should be doing.
Well, right, and then they rely on me so much for like the key pieces of the deal, right? Like
Mhm.
what's this house going to sell for later? What can I pay for it now? What should I do? What kind of work should I do? They're leaning on me for all of that information and all those questions, right? And
Yeah.
then like I'm just adding it up for them after I do some of these flips with these people. I'm like, all right, they bought the house here. I know what they put into it, and
Yeah.
I know what we sold it for. And there's just a lot, there's a
Yeah.
lot of room in
Yeah.
there sometimes. So
For sure. For sure. So you started doing that.
yeah,
Were you involved in any of the short sale stuff too? Is that kind of the same thing? Were you dealing with short sales at the time or?
not a ton. I mean, I
Okay.
tried to avoid short sales and the fact
Okay.
just that they were, super hassle. They're extra work and a lot more time consuming from an agent standpoint. There was deals out there from the investor standpoint in short sales, certainly, but from the agent standpoint, it was not worth my time. And we usually got the short sales is always pre-foreclosure before the actual foreclosure happens.
Okay.
So when we would take them and the bulk of the foreclosures, everything I sold was all real estate owned already, or
Okay.
like bank owned or HUD owned or something like that, where it was
Okay.
already through the foreclosure process, and short sale was off the table at
It was
that
already
point.
done, too far gone. Right on. Okay, cool. What was your first deal? When did you get your first deal? What was it? Take us through that process and what was going on at that point.
Oh man, like the first house I flipped or something like
Yeah,
that. Like,
yeah. Your first like dive into it. So you saw these guys doing it, you ran the numbers, and you're like, dude, I could do this. Like if they can do it, I can do it, right? And now, what was that first foray to cross onto the dark side of real estate investing?
ah, I'm trying to think. I mean, I didn't even have to think back of what the first one was. I knew the very first house I flipped, I did as a partnership deal. I had somebody else
Okay,
with me that would have been the handyman or whatever
okay,
in the operation, where that's not my skill set at all. It's not what I
yeah,
do
yeah.
at any part of that. So, but I'm trying to think. I think this would have been a house in like in Fox Crossing. I think maybe Barbara Avenue or something like this rings
Okay,
a bell. I couldn't give you the exact street
okay,
number. I know it's a little ranch house, 3-bedroom ranch, 2-car garage kind of thing.
sure.
Um, and it was, your typical flip. You got some cosmetics, and at least for me, I don't get into these huge,
Mm-hmm.
projects or whatever. I just handle
Mm-hmm.
these cosmetic ones, and
Yep.
kind of fell in that avenue and cleaned it up and resold and made some money, and
Yeah.
this, kind of the start of things. So,
Okay, cool. So that was it. You flipped the first one, and you say you don't get into the big one. So are you talking like you're not replacing cabinets type of big one, or like you're okay if you have to like redo a kitchen type thing, or what's your kind of
oh, cabinets
threshold?
and all that. Yeah, I would say cabinets and stuff is totally fine. Like, that's
Okay.
inside of the wheelhouse. I've done some houses where it's literally the only thing that was good was the foundation,
Yeah.
and them are the ones I try to stay away from. So if it's
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
or it's like if I gotta get super creative with the house, like removing walls, or
Sure.
that's not my specialty. I'll take what's there and put it back together,
Yeah.
but I'm not the kind of person who's like, let me blast out this wall and I'm gonna add a second master bath in a house where
Right.
there never was one. Those kind
Yeah.
of things. That's I guess where I'm drawing the line for me
Yeah.
personally. But
Yeah, for sure. We've done a few of those too in the past, and I'm right there with you. Some people that's their like they love that creative piece of it, and God bless them. I
well, yeah, some
we
people
need
are
it.
great at
Mhm.
it,
Yeah.
but not me.
No, we've had one of our first flips, really easy one. Like we walked, it was an MLS listed property, and we walked in the house, and you could clearly see where there was like a third bedroom. Like they had just taken the wall down to make the living room bigger. And we're like,
Oh,
if we just put two walls and a door there, now we have a 3-bedroom house, and the ARV is now this, right? We're like,
uh-huh.
this is almost like, what are we missing here? Yeah, nobody was offering on it. It just sat there, and we did pretty good on that one. I think we made like 20 some thousand bucks back in the day, which was good for us at the time. And
Yeah, that's
still is good.
awesome.
Like I said, we didn't have to do much. Just handed the keys to the contractor and told him what to do. So it was pretty easy. But is that sort of like now? I mean, and back then you said the construction piece isn't necessarily your your forte. So what's been your strategy, and what are the lessons learned through, the multiple deals over the decades that you've done now, as it comes to rehabbing the properties?
My mindset on that stuff is always like, if you buy the property right initially up front, if you buy it right and the deal's correct, you can do a lot of things wrong. And
Mm,
literally everything can be wrong. Like, you could screw up the whole flip, you could screw up the whole deal, you could overpay on stuff. And if you bought it right, you don't you it's nearly impossible to lose on these things if you
mhm.
buy a property right, or you have any idea, or like you're in tune to the market at all. It's fairly difficult,
Yeah,
for things to go south in a situation like that.
that's a really good point. Yeah, you just nailed it there. I think I see so many people are so afraid of getting their feet in the water, like they're afraid of losing, right?
Yeah.
But to your point, even if you just build in a little, build in a buffer or whatever in your numbers, so that you can't lose, unless you're like, I mean, they would have to like burn down and you didn't have insurance on it or something.
Hmm.
That's one way you could lose, but
Every
always.
yeah, like everybody talks about that, or you hear people are always freaking out about the numbers, and what are your numbers and what is your profit margin, and How much are you going to spend on your budget and all of this? And I'm just like, dude, if this house I know is going to be a 275 house all
Yeah.
day long because I
Yeah.
walk through them every day and I see
Yeah.
them and
Yeah.
I'm paying 200 for it or 175 or whatever it is, like I don't need to do any more math. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I don't do any more math. I don't count anything up anymore. I did it at the front.
Yeah.
I'll be try to be smart about it. Like
Sure.
I'm not going to put stone countertops in a basic house. There's certain things, right? But like
Yeah.
I'm gonna be smart about it, but it
Yeah.
costs what it costs. I'm gonna put it together as reasonably as I can. And
Yeah.
there's certain things I like to do in houses that I think present well or whatever.
Yeah.
There's some of that kind of stuff, but I don't add nothing up until the end or whatever, until it's
That's
time to do the taxes.
I love it, man. That's awesome. What are some of those things, Andy, from your perspective? What are some of the key things when you're flipping a property that you're gonna make sure you're doing on all of these?
So I'm like kind of, there's some things in the basements, right? That
Okay.
I think you can do a lot of stuff in basements of houses that you don't necessarily pay for. You do obviously, but like not a lot. But
Okay.
you can you by presenting an unfinished basement and presenting it as finished or doing things to make it look finished adds a ton of value to the house.
Okay.
And then you don't have to necessarily deal with like the finished basement appraisal stuff that can be
Oh.
semi tricky. But
What do you mean by that? Can you
um,
can you explain that a little bit further when you say presented as
well, like if you finish your basement and as a flipper, you spend
Mhm.
25,000 bucks, whatever. So like in new construction world, I know it's fifty bucks a foot or whatever to finish a basement, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if you spend that much as a flipper, I don't know that you get that back on an appraisal for lower level square footage. You're not going to
Sure.
appraise that back.
Yeah.
A buyer might pay for it, but that buyer may run into appraisal issues
Okay. Okay.
where if you take a basement and just leave it as unfinished, um, but present it a little bit better, make it show a little bit better, paint the floors, paint the walls, put recessed can lights in there, put a
Mm.
little drywall, a wall to separate an unfinished area, create like that sort of space
Mm.
can get a similar effect. Like buyers will pay a similar type price. You don't have to deal with the appraisal aspect as much. And then the house presents and shows almost as like a finished basement.
So good, dude. That's a good nugget right there. Everybody should go back re-listen to that because that's a good little nugget right there. We've had that too, where yeah, you just paint. That's why I was hoping. That's where I was thinking you were going with that. Was
Yeah,
paint? We painted the walls and cleaned it and made it look not like a scary basement, like a nice, like oh, the wife could go down here with and look. No offense to the ladies out there, but sometimes they're a little bit timid to go in the basements. And
I had along those lines, like I had an investor guy I worked with for many, many, many years, and he used the term barefoot and pregnant. So
okay,
if your wife is barefoot and pregnant, can she go down the stairs and go
okay,
into the laundry room if your basement's like if your laundry's in the basement, right? Or
yeah,
whatever, can she go down in that room and in that state and be like, okay,
yeah,
and
yeah.
if you can present it like that, then it's a huge win
That's awesome. And that's a very inexpensive improvement to make to the property to just give it that extra pop and get more interest in the buyers and hopefully drive up the price, right?
for sure. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. That's a great tip. What are some other things? Do you have any other, kind of nuggets along that line that people that you do that you've seen success with or some of your investor um, flipper guys out there?
Not too much. I mean, on the basement side, the recessed can lights, that helps.
Okay.
I'm pretty picky about flipping one switch because I think about it from a real estate agent perspective all the time from showing the houses, right?
Sure.
So like if you flip one switch, go into the basement and it turns everything on in the basement,
Yeah.
a real estate agent doesn't have to jumble through a mess and flip switches, find the pull chain, figure out how the lights turn on in the basement. It just like that would ruin the flow of a showing. A buyer's not going to view that space very well versus you flip a switch and boom, the lights are on. Or
Yeah.
in the basement, like I'd always try to stick in the laundry room. I'll try to make the laundry area because a lot of the older houses that are flips and stuff, like the laundry's in the basement,
Right.
you know.
Yep.
So if you can make that a little bit nicer and put a toilet or a slop sink in there, some counter space in there, again, the recessed lights, paint the floor, paint the walls, like those basic things, one switch come on versus walk into the room in a showing and search for literally 30 seconds to a minute, 2 minutes, try to figure out how to turn on the lights. Like
Yeah.
that makes a huge difference in the buyer's perception and can also be like the difference of like one offer or four.
Right. Ah, it's so good. That is so good. What about like just like smells in the house? Like, are you a believer in like when you're gonna show a house, like having the cookies out and the
No,
candles and all that stuff? None of that stuff
no, everybody
matters.
just laughs at that shit. Everybody laughs at it. Every buyer makes fun of people who do that. It's just totally stupid. And
Okay.
like the worst thing is the smells. If you overdo it, like on the air fresheners, that's an obvious cover up. Like
Uh,
blatant. Every real estate agent knows it. Every buyer knows it. Like
that's awesome.
everybody gets it. But like you can't have smoke smells and things like
Right.
that. There's like you have to go over the top to eliminate smoke smell. That's an odor that
Mhm.
if you don't seal that up correctly or deal with that correctly, that will seep through. And then every investor tries to then cover it up with the air freshener. And like you've hurt yourself so much by not correcting it up front to correct right away and
Mhm.
get rid of it. But outside of that, just don't have nasty smells in your house
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
just leave it.
Yeah. What is your have you bought properties that had either pet odor or smoke smell or anything like that? And what's been your experience with staying away from those things, or are you afraid of those things of when you see that, or is it just something that you work into your numbers?
No, it's not an issue for me. Like I would just so the steps to me, like I would use is if it's a nicotine smell or smoke type smell, you can use a TSP cleaner. That's what I've always used anyways. And
Okay.
scrub the walls up really good and
Okay.
that helps to get like the layer of soot and grime and nastiness that's on
Hmm.
there.
Hmm.
It also preps it for paint and I guess it's good for that, I guess. I don't know,
Okay.
but it
Okay.
helps to clean it. But then I was always told too, and I've dealt with this and it works, is to use a oil-based primer. You can't just get regular latex primer or something. You get an oil-based primer and then you go over that. Once you've cleaned it, then you can go over it with an oil-based primer. That
Okay.
helps to seal that smell in, and then you paint it from there.
Okay.
And that has, in my experience, like 100% eliminated like
Nice.
smoke smells, and then like pet stains, you get dogs, whatever subfloors get pissed on and stuff,
Hmm.
and like that I've always used the oil-based primer before I put carpet down or before I put the LVP or another layer of subfloor or whatever it is, like
Yep.
that seal that stuff in and cover it up. And I spent extra time at the beginning doing that so that I don't have to use air fresheners or cookies or whatever else. Like
Yeah.
people like to walk into a house and it smells like new carpet.
Hmm.
Like that's a smell
Yep.
and people like it.
Yeah.
Fresh
Yeah.
paint is a smell. Like that's better than cookies or better than,
Yeah.
linen breeze,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Are you when you say the oil-based stuff, are you talking about like the Kills stuff, Kills primer and all that? Is that what you're
Yeah.
referring to? Okay.
Yeah, any of those, but they make like Kills or them brands, they make two different kinds. So they'll sell them in
Uh,
the store side by side. One's a latex type primer and one is oil based. And it's a
oh,
difference.
okay. Gosh, I'm getting so many good nuggets here today already, Andy. See, you can tell I don't get in and do any of this stuff. I just sling properties or tell people that, hey, go fix this and then do what's best, right? But
Yeah,
this is good stuff to know so that if you get somebody, a contractor, painter, whatever, doesn't know what they're doing, you can
for
direct them
sure.
and point them in the right direction. So your investing strategy now, Andy, are you doing a lot of the rental side of things or more flips, or what's your mix in your strategy now?
I'm a little bit of both.
Okay.
Like I try to get involved in I've always had maybe a side goal of adding a couple properties a year. You know what I mean? A few,
Hmm.
two, three, something properties a year. and just buying those and holding them.
Hmm.
I've been doing that for a while, and if I'm bored or something, I get some flips or
Yeah.
something to do. I don't do like a ton of flips just from like the tax purposes and stuff I don't love, but like I said, sometimes like I get bored or whatever, and then I'll buy some.
Nice. I love that. That's your boredom habit, not playing video games. It's, I'll go buy a flip, I guess.
Yeah, might as well. Something to
Uh,
do.
You're a real estate junkie for sure when you know your habit is buying properties. You're like, gosh, I'm bored. I guess I'll just get another property. Yeah. That's awesome. Now you also you represent some people in the new construction space, and you've gotten involved in some partnerships. It sounded like when we were chatting a little earlier. Talk a little bit about the new construction world and what you're seeing as it relates to people. I know some guys I know that started in the flip space and now primarily just do infill lots and new construction type of stuff. But what are you seeing on the new construction stuff for somebody who might be interested in getting into that world?
I think it's a hot market. It's a busy piece of the market. Like, I always, every time I've been in real estate or whatever, I just find the niche or whatever and ride the wave. So when I first got in, we talked about foreclosures was a niche and you rode the wave. And that was just what the market demanded at that point in time as the market conditions, right? So,
Sure.
but now with interest rates the way they were, house prices spiked the way they did,
Hmm.
interest rates now changed and spiked, like inventory is ridiculously low. And anybody who hasn't lived under a rock and cares about real estate knows like it's impossible, right, to find stuff. So
Yeah.
that's what's created new construction. And then if you look at the overall market, if you're in a price point of 270,000 bucks, like on the low end to 270, something like that, and then you're going to be to 400 price wise,
Hmm.
go dig around on the MLS or go look on Zillow or whatever, and you're gonna see that I don't know, totally making this up, but what is it, 60, 70%, 75, something new construction in that
Yeah.
price range?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like especially in the threes, once you get to like 320 or something like that, it's a huge percentage of new constructions, virtually the whole market. So that should tell some people if you want to be involved in real estate where you want to be, like
Right. Right.
that's what's selling and that's what's moving right now. So, but it's also important when when you're doing new construction is to build and sell what people want and what's selling,
Hmm.
and that's going to be something smaller in size and something more affordable. Uh, I have zero interest in building somebody a fancy house,
Yeah.
some big custom house or whatever. Like
Sure.
that's a different lane or different whatever. But
Yeah.
if you can just keep to a basic price. And I've had this with any aspect of real estate, flips or new construction. If you're in the low end of real estate, you don't lose ever.
Yeah.
Like
There's
the
always going
low
to be
end is always
somebody,
busy.
always going to be somebody who needs a affordable house. Right.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, when you mentioned like 270 to the floors, I was like, you can get a new house for that? Like that seems low to me. Are you what are the what are the keys to keeping the cost low? And then like, what are people seeing for margins on new construction? Like what are they, I know what we look at when we're looking at a flip. I know how we run our numbers. There's a certain like I run it as like a certain dollar amount I want to make sure I can make. I don't worry about like percent ARV like some people do. But like,
Mhm.
what are the guys and what are you seeing and you doing on the new construction side? Like, what is their target typically when they're looking at doing these projects? And then how are they making sure they're staying within those I guess you'd say parameters?
Yeah, I think and each builder's different. Some builders I work with work on percentage basis,
Okay.
and they want to make 20% or something on a house, right?
Okay.
Some people look at it more differently, and they're just looking at the overall project, and I can make 30,000 bucks or whatever.
Okay.
It would be slightly different on that. But I know one thing that they do, a key thing is finding a lot
Okay.
that you can build on where the covenants are not crazy, right?
Okay.
So in order to get to a price of 270, right, you need to build a small house
Mm-hmm.
and you need to get creative with how you build a small house. So like, do you eliminate basements? Do you eliminate bedrooms? Do you
Mm,
eliminate garages? Do you find giveaway lots that nobody else wants? Do you find subdivisions where the covenants allow you to build less square footage?
mm,
Those are all little avenues or little ways in which you could reduce costs.
okay.
Um, you can sometimes work directly with municipalities and you might be able to get some assistance, or you might be able to get some kickback from them if they've got, like aged lots or inventory or stuff that they want to get rid of. That could
Okay.
be an avenue to help reduce things. And this is not my lane at all. I don't do this at all, but smart people do is they understand exactly how much subs, like in new construction, like
Yeah.
if you're a builder, you better know exactly how much people pay for drywall and exactly how
Mhm.
much it is to paint. And that's the world where it's a little more my sloppy way of doing numbers and all that stuff like we talked about for
Yeah.
ARVs for flips.
Yeah.
Like that's harder to do in new construction because you got such a big range. And
Right.
then like I wouldn't know to hire a painter, I wouldn't know that I can get a painter down to X price.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you have to be involved in that and you have to shop that and you have to bid that and you have to negotiate that and you have to set that up with every single contractor. So I feel like skilled builders or talented builders are they get good people clearly, but then
Mhm.
they'll either build enough volume or give them enough work that says, hey, your price has to be here. I'd love to hire you, but price is this, or I can't hire you.
Right. Yeah. 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 That seems like that to me has always been the risk of like, no, you got to know your numbers because if you got a $30,000 margin, that can get eaten up pretty quickly with making a few mistakes with subs or yeah, like subs, you gave the sub the down payment or something, and they fly away with it. And now you got to start over. And I mean, it can be quite an expensive learning experience trying to get into this ball game. But I know guys that do it. So that's why I'm like, it seems like an interesting avenue to possibly, like you said, ride the wave right now. It seems like that's kind of where the hot market is in some of these more affordable new construction type of scenarios. So buying the lot, going back to that, what are you seeing people paying for lots? Like how are they determining the price they can pay for the lots? What are you seeing as far as the criteria goes on that?
A lot of it would be location specific. And then the thing with the lots is a lot of times like those prices are set in stone from a developer, and many times like new construction lots are never MLS listed properties.
Mm,
So these are all like, builders get relationships with developers and developers sell to builders almost exclusively.
okay.
So they kind of bypass real estate agents and bypass the MLS.
Mhm.
Um, and the pricing of those lots are sort of set in stone almost. It's hard
Okay.
to buy something, 60,000 bucks. Like it's almost hard to buy something for 60 grand, 60, 70,000 bucks, depending the area is
Mhm.
pretty difficult to find.
Okay.
Um, I just got totally distracted. My phone was blowing up on me there for a
That's all
second.
right. No worries. No worries, man.
Yeah. But then it's, like the infill lots, those things you can find, those are MLS listed properties, but those you can find that's how you get into like the 270s as an example, is if you find a $20,000 infill lot
Okay.
in anywhere in the Fox cities, those can be 20 to 30,000 bucks and you make money on those.
Okay.
There's a little bit extra cost, there's added cost. So those infill lots have to be less expensive than like an open subdivision lot, just because there's, a lot more like excavation costs and moving dirt around and all that kind of stuff. Like
Okay.
the cost to build on a lot infill that has two houses surrounded by it's going to be, I don't know, 15 grand more probably to build a house
Oh,
than it would be if it's totally open.
okay. Got it. And that's just like you said, just because you're going to have to be skirting dirt and doing different things. And is it anything to do with the utilities? Or are those typically there if you're, like you said, between two houses? Utilities going to be
Utilities should, the utilities should be there. It's mainly like the cost of like, let's say you had a subdivision and you have all this extra dirt, you can just go move it to the next lot and keep moving it around. And there's
Uh,
other builders that need dirt. And so like you can move that dirt around.
okay.
If you're in the middle of two houses, like not only is it a pain in the ass to get the dirt out, so that costs you more money,
Mm,
but then you have to pay to get rid of the dirt, and that costs you more money. So
interesting.
then all the contractors too, like when you're pouring a foundation wall, like
Yeah,
it's way harder to get your equipment around all these other houses and pour a foundation in that situation than it is when it's a wide open lot.
that
So
makes a lot of sense.
and I think that applies through many of the steps, right? So like that's where the price becomes they charge more, so everything becomes a little bit more expensive than if it's, hey, I got this house right here, and it's easy to work on, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Wow. No, that's good. This is all really good stuff because I see some of these lots sometimes and I'm tempted to like, should I try to get do this? But I don't know like those little things like that, like moving the dirt and getting rid of the dirt and doing these things. I don't think about that. I'm just
Well,
like, oh, there's a lot. Here's how much they want. Cool.
in the old lots too, the other thing on the old lots is like in the flip world, we deal with the old lots and old houses and stuff where they have the lines coming into the street, the
Hmm.
sewer and water lines, and those in older houses are a lot of times junk, or they have roots going through them, or they need to be cleaned out all the time, or whatever. Like that's the same thing that you'd have on an old infill lot too. So if you're buying a $20,000 lot, you're also flipping a coin that there's a $10,000 sewer bill that you got to flip, that you're going to have
Uh,
to redo as well. So like,
okay.
there's more surprises and stuff, and
Sure.
then
Yeah.
that's where like you be aware of it, but like I could tell people, you spend a lot, buy $20,000 per lot. If you can control your pricing on your contractors, like you can still eat 10,000. You
Right.
can eat some of that stuff.
Similar to the way you were saying earlier about like as long as you get
Yeah,
it right, you buy it right. You can
yeah,
you can you can absorb some potential surprises in there if you're doing it
yeah.
right. Yeah. Very
Yeah.
good.
And I absorb surprises in volume too. You know what I mean? So
Mm,
like that's where if you do enough projects or have enough things going on and one of them kind of sucks, like
yeah.
it doesn't matter. I did 15, so
Right.
three of them sucked, 12 of them or 10 of them were awesome and two, like
Yeah.
it
It's
all
just
kind of
dollar cost
washes.
averaging a little bit there. And yeah.
Yep.
We see that a lot in the flip world or in the rental game too. Like we know some folks who bought in one or two rentals and I think that's much riskier than buying 10 to 20 or more rentals because
Hmm.
now you got one vacancy, you got 50% vacancy if you got two units, right?
100%.
Or you have a
Yeah.
single family house and they're vacant, now you got 100% vacancy, and
Yeah.
you need that cash to come in from the one where if you buy enough of them and you get one dud, it kind of washes out with what you did on the other one. Same with flips. Like we have some people, they'll buy 15, 20 properties from us a year plus other properties they're doing. And some of them you're like, well, I don't know how they're going to make money on this one, but thanks for buying it from us at the number you offered us. It's great. Uh,
Yeah.
and they don't
Yeah.
care because they're keeping their crews busy and they buy enough of them that they're going to win big on several and they're going to lose a little bit on some other ones. And overall, at the end of the year, like you said, when they're going to pay their taxes, they're going to have a tax bill because they made pretty good money, from doing it.
Yeah.
And that's really the name of the game. So you do one flip and you're banking on that one, may or may not knock you out of the game, right?
Yep.
Yep.
It's definitely easier. I think the more you have, obviously it's easier that you get more experience and stuff like that, but it's
Yeah.
from a rental standpoint, it's easier to deal with the furnace. It's easier, whatever comes up. It's
Yeah.
just kind of, it just it's simpler once you get over that hump, the
For
initial
sure.
hump, I guess. Like,
Yeah, for sure. You have a lot of experience just in all aspects of real estate, which is one of the reasons I wanted to have you on here today. And so you bought some properties from us at Wisconsin Discount Properties as a wholesaler. Obviously, you've done deals through the MLS. Somebody listening to this, like, what are some things they should know about the differences between maybe looking at MLS and working with an agent to help them find some investment opportunities versus working with somebody like us as a wholesaler? What are the things to be looking out for? Pros and cons, what are the things if they're looking for an agent, what should they be looking for? If they're looking for a wholesale company, what should they be looking for? Those types of things.
um, I guess the first thing I would say is like again, the money's made in the deal, right? The
Mm-hmm.
money's made in the purchase of the transaction. So any investor should probably on the purchase side spend less time talking to real estate agents trying to buy something on the MLS. It's probably a waste of time
Okay.
to do that and spend more time getting on wholesaler lists or buying properties from you guys or whatever, where it's a off market type situation and it's not competitive. Like the only reason like you guys properties have margin and are available for investors is because they are off market.
Mm-hmm.
It's a unique opportunity for somebody to get those. Like you're competing with your list, which is a fine list, I'm sure, but
Mm-hmm.
it is not the list of a real estate agent in the MLS.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
it's a different it's different.
Yeah.
So um it's way harder to make things work on MLS properties and you can spin your wheels and get frustrated. Where on yours or any other wholesalers, like still do your due diligence. You know, I pay attention, I make my own ARV numbers, I make my own numbers. I don't rely 100% on what somebody else tells me. You know, I do my due diligence so
Yeah.
that I can feel comfortable knowing that I don't have to do too much more math. You know what I mean? I know my
Mm-hmm.
back end number. I'm super in tune with that, and I'm not ever going to be wrong in my back end number. And you know, so I would just spend all your time focusing on that and make sure your back end number is what it is, and then design your rehab around it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
you can choose to remodel a house and spend 50,000 on a remodel, or you could spend 35 and probably get the same result.
Yes.
You
100%.
know,
Yep.
so I think that would be like know your back end number and then be humble enough to change all your plans and what you thought you were going to do with the house or what you want to do or what you saw on TV or whatever and just work inside of those numbers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
And
so
just be like,
good.
all right, it's gotta fit inside of here. And then, you know, like the whole dollar cost averaging thing, like you don't have properties that lose. You
Right.
just don't. If
Right.
you understand that one simple concept, you'd
Yeah.
never lose money.
That's so good.
Um, but that's like so on your properties, like you would be able to actually see a spread, you'd be able to see an opportunity to make money. Um, I pay attention, like I watch some videos that you do and I'll rewind them and I'll check and I'll look for little odds and ends and stuff that might be glossed over or whatever. I look through that stuff.
Yep.
I factor in the costs for title. You know, I factor in all the extra costs, you know, because
Yep.
that's different when you buy MLS, you know, you're not paying title insurance fees, you know, there's,
Correct.
you know, some of that. So you just got to know those costs and pay attention to that stuff. You know, you guys do a good job of putting a lot of that out there, putting the inspection out there. There's at least something to look at.
Mm-hmm.
There's some video to look at.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you got the title search, so you know, like there's not special assessments or goofy stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Well, those are
I don't
all
know,
good
like,
things. I think a lot of people take that stuff for granted. They don't know, if they get somebody new out there, they're like, I don't know. What should I be looking for? And I think those are important things. Like, to know if you're working with a wholesale company, you want to make sure you're going to get clean and clear title and that they're actually working with a title company. It seems like obvious, but
yeah,
there's horror stories out there and some parts of, I don't know if I've heard it so much in Wisconsin, but I know in other states there's bad actors out there that they're just swindling, you know, that here's the deal you can buy. And then they never, give me this money and then you'll get the house and they don't run it through a title company. There's no title insurance, there's nothing. So that's an important thing to point out there. Andy, you mentioned something earlier, but I wanted to ask you because one of the things I hear a lot about is we don't do walkthroughs, right? And so with MLS,
Mhm.
a lot of times you're going to walk through the properties versus our process, you're going to get a video and an inspection report. What are your viewpoints on that? Because some people I talk to love that idea. They don't have to drive all over the place, kicking tires, like you said, and wasting a lot of time on MLS properties that are going to be so competitive with you've got everybody on the list, right? On an MLS versus our list is still, yeah, it's a good list, but way smaller amount of people you're up against. But some people feel the need they have to walk through a property in order to feel comfortable with it. What's been your approach on that? Because you've bought several properties from us, not walking through them up front. How is Talk a little bit about that and how you work that into your system or into your process.
Um, I don't know. I'm kind of old school and I have a simple mindset that says you want to buy something super cheap and below value, like maybe you can't see it.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like I've bought 50 plus houses that I've never stepped inside the door. Like
Yeah.
that's to me, that's how you buy houses if you want a good deal. You
Yeah.
know, like if you want to go pay retail and investigate every nook and cranny of the house and have your home inspector in the house for 5 hours and pick it apart and
Mm.
it, pay retail.
Yeah.
Go go pay retail. That's what it's there for. But
Mhm.
like I don't know. Sometimes maybe you have a house like from your perspective or whatever. Maybe there would be a house that is cleaner or in better shape than what people would give it credit for or whatever on the
Mhm.
video.
Yeah.
And then you could maybe get more money if people put their eyeballs on it.
Mhm.
Um, but on the same time, it's like, sometimes people over, and I've been involved in both. I've paid
Yeah.
more, and I'm like, oh, that's a little worse than I thought,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
didn't do as good on that one. And I'm like, oh, shoot. But
Yeah.
then another one, it's like, oh, that's a little better than I thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I just have always assumed it's part of the game. Like every short, like if you buy any foreclosure, like through the courthouse or whatever,
Yeah.
none of those have ever been walked through in the
Exactly.
history,
Yeah.
unless you're breaking in. So like,
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that is one thing that obviously I get at different people's concern levels and stuff. And we used to do the in-person thing before COVID happened. And then COVID happened and we were starting to grow where we were starting to get more than like one or two properties that we could put out a week. And it became a logistical nightmare for us to try to like have one of our
Mhm.
representatives at the house for an hour a week. And then they're also out trying to get more deals, so that we can provide more inventory to the market. And it just became like something had to change. Like we had to just come up with a way that was going to be sustainable and allow us to scale the thing. So that's why we get the inspection reports now. We never used to do that. It used to just become walk through it and be your own inspector.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have said, hey, I actually appreciate you guys having the inspection reports versus me trying to walk through and act like I know what I'm looking at. Like, I don't know what the hell I'm looking for. So
Mhm.
having the inspector go do it, I don't have to go walk the properties. When I set up the process when we did this, I joke, but I said I wanted to make it so you could, instead of sitting on Facebook on your phone while you're on the crapper, you could sit and evaluate a deal in that 10 or 15 minutes and hopefully make some money. So that was the precipice of going to this virtual option versus the
It's kind
in
of true
person.
though, and I'd be lying to you if it had never happened that way. Yeah,
Yes, Andy, you just confirmed my wishes and my dreams. They have come true. Thank you. This is what I've been setting
My
up for the last 4 years, trying to get somebody to
my my
sit on the crapper looking at a deal.
my internal clock works that way. So I know Monday morning, 6:30 that dings and I gotta
Uh,
take a shit right around that same time anyway. So like I know how my Monday morning's scheduled in.
that is awesome. That just made my day, man. I appreciate that. With that, I think we'll go to a wrap. I don't know if it's going to get any better than what we just ended on here, Andy. So, our last question before we wrap this, besides sitting on the crapper looking at our deals, what's your favorite place to visit in Wisconsin, or your favorite Wisconsin tradition? Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, I'm crying over here. This is so good. Oh man. All right. In all seriousness, Andy, we gotta try to wrap this up. Favorite Wisconsin tradition or place to visit?
Okay, I guess I'd say I'll go Lambeau Field.
All
I
right.
go Lambeau Field. I mean, that's like a little second home. You know what I mean? You can
Yeah.
hang out there and like everybody's cool, everybody's fun to hang out with, and spend that whole day in the parking lot and having
Mhm.
fun, and
Yeah.
that's it to me.
You gonna be at the draft?
Yeah, for sure.
Sweet.
Yep,
Awesome.
for
Well,
sure.
we'll have to connect up at the draft. We'll be there. Should be fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be a good time for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks, Andy. This has been the most I've laughed on one of our podcast episodes, I think, and I'm actually in tears over here because that was so funny. Appreciate you being on, man. I learned a lot in all seriousness, and I love having you on, man. It's been great to sit and chat with you, and I think our audience is really going to enjoy this episode for a lot of reasons.
Okay.
If anybody wants to get a hold of you for picking your brain or maybe having you help on some new construction lots or anything in the brokerage side of things for you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Probably just my cell phone. I'm usually like a text person or whatever. So if somebody wanted to send me a text message or whatever, they can reach me anytime. That's the best way to get me. And I'm happy to like talk real estate or help them
Cool.
out, help a new investor, help a new builder.
Sweet.
Um, I love this game. You know what I mean? It's just a fun game for me at this point in time. And I
Yep.
like to see other people win and learn, like learn how to play it, because
Yeah.
it's kind of a simple game, I feel like, but
Yep.
you just got to know how to play.
For sure. For sure. Is that cool if I put your cell number in the show notes?
Yep. Yep.
Sweet.
That's cool.
Awesome.
Yep.
Very cool. Well, Andy, appreciate you, man. And obviously, yeah, you love helping people because when you're bored, you just do flips. So why not help somebody else do it too?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can teach them the best strategy for sitting on the can. Like, what's your approach? Where do you hold the phone? How you zoom in? All that
You
stuff.
only got like 15, 20 minutes before your legs start falling asleep. So you gotta be on it pretty quick.
You better hope it's not a big property that we're doing with a long video, right? When you're looking at it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, for sure. Awesome, guys. Well, thanks so much for tuning in for all of you guys listening out there. This has been another episode of the Wisconsin Investor Podcast. If you got some value out of this, please share it. Sharing is caring, as we say on every episode. And we'll see you on the next show.